boom, recording. There was something. I know every time it does that, people are like, "What the fuck?" Yeah, the computer talks to us. This is what the vaccine actually does. It's once you get it injected, then it starts talking to you through Zoom. But this is
I was offered a free Wi-Fi and I didn't get anything. So
you know what? I think the offering of things to the vaccine should probably not go anything further monetarily wise, like in terms of monetary value, than Wi-Fi. Like as soon as you're like a lottery, as soon as you're like, yo, you want these backstage passes to Justin
I agree
Bieber's
with that. I agree with that. I mean, that's another thing that's like super black and white. Like how do you ask people for their immunization card and whatnot? I understand the concept of it, but the way they're going with it is just absolutely ridiculous. And that $2 million, like what the fuck?
Yeah.
Can we curse on your show or no?
Yeah. You can say whatever the fuck you want on my show. I mean, like, I don't know. I shouldn't say whatever the fuck you want. You know what? I'll figure it out on the fly. Just say it. But yeah, it's one of those things that like, again, and I made this about one of my posts, my most recent post, where I'm like, I find it very convenient how the government's like, oh, we don't have money for this. Sorry. Oh, we don't have money for this. Sorry. And then it's like, yo, but do you want $2 million to get vaccinated? Like, yeah, I just came up with $2 million. I just came up with $30 million to incentivize people to hire vaccinated workers.
Yeah,
yo.
But teachers have to buy their own supplies, you know?
Yeah.
But another thing that I thought about it when that $2 million lottery came out was the fact that about 70% of people were already vaccinated. So you are putting incentive for people who are already doing the thing that you wanted them to do. It's like, what? That incentive doesn't work that way.
Yeah, and also like it goes against government policy to ask for people's immunization cards. Like that's not legal. And then on the website, I post on my story, they're like, yeah, nobody should be asking for your vaccination cards. And there are businesses like, yeah, we're going to scan. It's like, dude, you can't do that.
You have to. I mean, we're open right now. I was serving last night and we got, basically we got ordered to ask for people's immunization card and if they want to sit together. And well, I mean, it's really hard to monitor that, especially because only 20% of people are eligible to get that card.
Yeah.
So but yeah, they're telling businesses to do that, which is just ridiculous and it's hard. And I got yelled at so many times because I was doing something that I didn't even believe in. So it's like,
yeah, and it's tough, right? Because like, and I mean, I don't know, I'm not a business owner and I don't have to worry about employees, so I don't want to speak too much and be like, wow, it's so easy to do this. Like, guys, why don't you? Obviously not. I'm not trying to shame anybody. It's just one of those things that when you look at it from an objective standpoint, from how the government's handled things, some people go like, have some compassion for business owners because they've lost everything and their lives have been decimated. Absolutely. I agree with you. They do deserve compassion. However, looking at it objectively, following the government blindly has gotten them to this point. You know what I mean? So it's worth, it's worth asking, like, maybe it's worth thinking outside. Actually, I do think it's worth thinking outside the box and worrying about like,
you have to give an alternative though.
Yes.
Like, what could they have done? You know, it's really easy to have a social cause or have, you know, be a warrior when you're loaded. But when your bar is closed for 16 months, you do whatever the fuck you have to do to stay open.
Yeah, you're right. And I guess, I don't know, maybe this is obviously there could be some holes in this plan, but like maybe a bunch of them could have got together and been like, no, we're all going to stay open. We're all going to stay open. Maybe we won't have indoor dining, but I don't know. That's what they did. They closed indoor dining. No, we're going to have indoor dining. We're going to band together and we're going to fight these cases in court. Because by ourselves, like, you might be afraid of the fines. You might be afraid of the bad publicity of the backlash. But together, no, man, fuck that. We need a bunch of us to band together, say, no, we're not standing for the government.
It needs to be very collective. It needs to be very collective. And in this climate, that not two people can agree on something, that's very hard.
Yeah, especially in Canada, right? And like, this is kind of why, and I'm very pro-choice in terms of the vaccine. In terms of the lockdowns, I'm very against the lockdowns because I think the negatives far outweigh the positives. People go, oh, well, people can die from COVID.
They're surpassing it, yeah.
Look, man, dude, how many people are depressed? How many people want to kill themselves? You know how many people have messaged me, been like, bro, thank you for your stories. I've completely given up. Like, I don't know what to do. I feel like my life is shitty. And even I've felt that. Like, man, I was in a psychiatric ward for suicide 6 years ago. I felt suicidal and I love my life. And it's like, fuck, I'm not depressed. What's going on? there's just this heavy energy. I don't think, no, I'm not going to say I think. Keeping people locked down, depressed, and under the government's thumb is extremely harmful. And I think way, way worse than any kind of negatives that COVID could bring on. And I think it's insane that people still buy into the government full throttle. Maybe you feel like your hands are tied. And again, like you're a business owner and you don't like doing it, but your hands are tied and you can't see a way out because there's no greater community for you to band together with to fight back. But if you're somebody who's like, yo, man, just shut up and the government knows what they're doing and
that's completely false.
I
mean, that's something we can all agree on, that this government's response was miserable. That's something that we're all collectively agreeing on that.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I'm starting to get very weary with Canada because it's like, when are we going to get our lives back, man? When are we going to get our lives? Is it worth saying, yo, we're keeping you locked down and depressed to keep you healthy? Nah, man, fuck you. I don't believe you I haven't believed you for the last year and 4 months. And I don't believe you. I won't believe you anymore going forward. So
no, fair enough.
I don't know, I guess. And so I'll bring this up because this is kind of changing topics now. Talking about something you messaged me on social media, talking about having compassion for those who might be oppressing you. And this kind of ties into the government. And I'm sure that you can elaborate better on this, and kind of connect the dots a little bit here, because I'm not sure if anything I say can, and I'll cut that out obviously. But Alexander Solzhenitsyn said that when he was being marched off to the gulags by the Soviet Union police, he was condemning them and cursing them in his head silently. I can't believe these fucking assholes. Fuck them. What are they doing? They're so evil and corrupt. But then he remembered about a year and a half ago, he was so patriotic and he loved the Soviet Union and he wanted to be one of the officers, but his love for writing prevented him from applying. So he thought, like, I'm a hypocrite. Like, how dare I say that? I could have easily been these guys walking somebody like me off to the gulag, but instead, because I chose a different route, the roles are reversed. I can't sit here and condemn them. The line between good and evil is razor thin, and it slices between every human being. Like, it's not fair to call those people inherently evil.
No. Yeah, that's completely right. I don't think anybody's evil. I don't think anybody wants people to die. I don't think anybody wants people to deal with the suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, whatever it is that this lockdown is basically pressing on people. The difference is with the method of their protest, right? What I have a problem with is put masks on. It's like, well, you're barking at the wrong tree, right? That's what I'm saying. And yeah, with just the method of that people use, and obviously I am pro-vaccine. I've been very clear about that. I think vaccination should be a lot faster and a lot more, and then we're gonna survive. I think we're gonna survive this altogether.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let's switch gears here for a bit. Let's talk about your book.
Yeah, for sure.
I love your book. And do you think that the anecdote of Solzhenitsyn and the gulags kind of applies to what you talk about, or?
It was a little bit different because when those things happened to me, I could clearly see, and I mentioned this in my book too, that we were all coming from the same faith, right? We all had the same faith. We just have different interpretation of it. And no, I don't think I could ever be in that position, but it might be because of my upbringing, of my family. My dad was a political activist for many, many years. And I always had a good understanding of what's going on because I was also really westernized and I was not really isolated. I had families who lived in Europe, and I understood. I had a little bit of global awareness, so it was really hard to be brainwashed into thinking that there's only one true form of justice. Everybody else is evil, and we're the God sent, gifts for people. And but we're also killing people. So it was for me, it was very obvious
Yeah.
that I could never be part of that. I never romanticized being on the side of a government that is responsible for mass murder of many, many people.
Mm-hmm. So do you want to give some backstory? Because I've been reading your book and I've seen the promo and stuff. So do you want to give a bit of backstory to people who are unfamiliar with your book as to what you talk about, what you kind of deal with, and so on?
Yeah. So basically, the book takes place in 2009, about 11, 12 years ago, when after an election, um, some people believed that the election was rigged and the election was doctored, and those people wanted to protest the results of the election. We had a leader that he was the one who we thought should have been elected the president.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, obviously, we had some justified reasons for it. I'm not going to get into it. There's a massive amount of like overwhelming data on that.
Mm-hmm.
But what we were saying was we need to protest these results and we need to do a recount or do something to get our votes back.
Mm-hmm.
And the protest started as a very, very peaceful protest because the leader, the guy who had to be president or who should have been president.
And where was this? Do you mind saying or no?
In Iran.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What do you mean? Like where as in like?
Yeah, just because. Yeah, I meant just the country in general.
Yeah, it was in Iran. It was
Okay.
all over the country. I mean, the guy was active in Tehran, which is the capital, but the protest was happening all over, right? Many millions of people were on the streets peacefully protesting, and then after just a few days, not even 2 or 3 days, the government started pushing back with high level of aggression, and military came into the place, and they started beating people up. They started locking people. They acted guilty, if I can say.
And this is the new regime that was elected in.
The regime stays the same. The regime is basically the supreme leader or whoever is on top, and then the president is the person who gets elected every 4 years, right? Okay. So the regime still stays the same, but we, I mean, I'm not gonna say we. I believe that the reformation needs to happen inside the regime in order for it to be meaningful. And I am against any type of revolution because I think it's just counterproductive. It's going to leave the country open to a lot of problems. We have ISIS on the left, we have Al Qaeda on the right. It's not going to be good to not have a centralized government. So the revolution, I don't think, is the answer. That's why we were going for the reformation inside the government. But yeah, the regime stays the same. The president changes, and that was the election that we were protesting. And the government's response was, the elected government's response was basically what set everything on fire for 2 years, 3 years in a row. They immediately brought the military into the picture, and just brutal, horrifying scenes of people falling like flies, military lining up on rooftops, killing people, police cars running people over in the crowd, and just the country immediately turned into a war zone. And obviously people, when they saw these things, when they saw their people, their friends, their families are dying, were getting imprisoned, they pushed back, and that's how the entire green movement started. We called it green movement because the president who we think should have been elected chose that color as his basically color of election. So everybody who supported him was trying to wear a green wristband, green shirt, green scarf, something to show his support, that his color was green. And that's why we call it a green movement.
And so when
Yeah,
and so when things started getting out of hand from the government's reaction, people were thrown in jail, people were hurt, people were killed. Like, what was the kind of, how long did that last, and what was kind of your reaction from it?
Well, I was not inside I was not really in it at first. Because I was not in capital. I was living in a different city,
Mm-hmm.
in a very, very conservative city. So we didn't really have that much of a protest going on. But I would see them getting broadcast, and there are some horrifying footage of people just dying and bleeding out on the streets, and some people actually got famous. And I think Krista Berg, he made a song about one of our martyrs too. I'll show you. I'll send you the song
Yeah.
after. But yeah. So all these things was very emotional, very emotional for us, because after like the entire campaign, entire election, we all thought everything is going to get better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything was like, oh, there's going to be hope. Like we're going to get better. Everything is going to be okay after the election, and the overwhelming support everywhere you would look, it was green. Everybody was supporting this guy
Mm-hmm.
in the streets, everywhere, right? On social media. I mean, the social media wasn't really that heavy back then, but
Yeah.
on Facebook, you could see just an overwhelming amount of green colors everywhere on the streets. And
Mm-hmm.
when all those things came down, it was just, we were just left with anger. We were just left with anger and disappointment. And yeah, it's exactly like just all your hopes and dreams are getting shattered, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the response was, in my opinion, was inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Because as soon as we started peacefully protesting, then more killings happened. So
Mm-hmm.
the emotion, it was a very emotional time for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I was obviously very emotional, and I was 15, didn't know what the fuck is going on
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, but I was just in that stream of emotions, and I wanted to do whatever I could, right? And that's how I got into protesting in a way that I know,
Mm-hmm.
which is writing. You know, I was good at it. And I had a lot of good friends who introduced me to the publishers, to the good publishers that were also on the same side as us. So that's how I got into it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they got me. So,
so when they got you, did you think that it was going to happen for you, or it was going to happen to you, that you're like, there's no way that I could be in custody for this. There's no way that I could get caught.
I didn't think we were doing significant enough to be targeted.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think our job was that important. Like there were a lot bigger people that were, that were protesting as well, and they were saying like worse thing about the government. So I didn't think we were targeted, but I was obviously wrong, and I don't know why this happened, because even right now I look back and I was like, yeah, there was a lot of worse shit happening. But I think it was because we didn't have any backing. We weren't that big of a resistance group.
Mm-hmm.
So they targeted us, and it was very easy for them to do so. So yeah, I didn't even believe it at first. It was everything was just happening very fast, and I was not afraid. I was not afraid for a very long time, and that was my mistake. That was my mistake. And people who were older than me, they were a little bit more aware. But again, I was 18, and the people who I were like hanging out with, they were like all 18, 19. They were all university students. They were all established publishers, established authors, and very smart people. So they knew what was going on. I was mostly just following and wanting to be like them, right? I looked up to them, and I wanted to be them. So that's why I was doing these things, and I never thought about the backlash. But they had to give me a reality check. A few times we had some heart-to-hearts, and they're like, "Hey, like this. You sure you want to do this?" And I'm like, "Let's go."
Yeah, this isn't a game.
Yeah. They knew exactly what was going on. The guy who introduced me to this entire situation to this day, he still feels guilty. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was my decision, right?
Yeah, exactly. You signed up for it, and then
I take it to the chin, take the L, move on. It's one of those things.
Yeah, but it's something that you learn from, right? I mean, like, I don't know. I can't imagine being in prison, especially in Iran, whatever that looks like. But from what I read, it's not a good situation to be
Not a walk in the
arrested.
park, you know?
Yeah, it's not it's not exactly a slap on the wrist. When you were first taken away, I know they handcuffed you, they blindfolded you, and I remember you saying that anytime you tried to speak or anytime you tried to express emotion, they would shut you up or harass you in some kind of way. Do you want to kind of walk through the process of getting arrested, what that kind of, the details of how hard that was emotionally and all that shit?
Yeah, well, again, keep in mind that just wanted to put a note out there. This book is a lot of the things that happens, like a lot of the conversations are all just me freestyling 10 years after. Mm-hmm. Because when you're in that situation, I don't know how the conversation went. I know like the concept of it. I know what was said, but I don't know what actually was the words, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I spent a long time trying to forget about it, right? Before I started writing the book. So when I tried to remember it, I had to bring back all those memories, and a lot of them weren't there. And I tried to I had to make stuff up for a storytelling purpose, right?
Of course.
Yeah. So the first few days, could not tell you what was happening. But when I had some time to sit down and actually reflect on what was happening, then yes, I noticed those things. I noticed the suffocation. That their entire purpose was to break your soul, right? Mm-hmm. And one way to do that is to just not let you have anything, including emotions. So they treat you like shit, and then when you get frustrated, you get beat up. When you get angry, you get beat up. Everybody's instructed not to talk to you. And imagine being somewhere you can't talk to anybody and you don't see the daylight. And you can't even yell when you're alone in a cell because someone's going to come in and someone's going to beat you. So yeah, just everything was suffocated. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to explain, but you just start finding other coping mechanisms, right? Just try to make up some people in your mind just to keep you company. And yeah, that was it. It's really hard to explain how that feeling is because you're not even sure if it's real.
Yeah.
No.
It's not exactly something you can compare it to.
No, no. Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember when your parents locked you up and then beat the shit out of you? Some people are like, no, I don't.
Yeah, like 10 times worse, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's one of those things that your concept of reality changes when you're in isolation, especially for that extended amount of time. And you just don't understand the difference between dream and reality. So it's like I'm going to give you an example. When I was there, everything's the same, right? Everything's the same. You don't know if it's morning. You don't know if it's lunchtime, breakfast, nothing, right? All the meals are the same. There's no daylight. There's an artificial light on the floor, on the ceiling. Sorry, and your dreams start to melt into reality, if that makes any sense. So I would fall asleep and I would dream that I was in the room. I was in the same room, right, with the exact same structure and everything that was in it. And then I would wake up and I was still in the room. And then you repeat this process 5 or 6 times, and then you don't know when you're waking up. You don't know when you're right. So the things that are happening, you can't tell. You don't know what's happening, right?
Mm-hmm. That's fucking wild. Holy shit. So
it's just something that it's really hard to write it, especially that's why it took me so long to try to write. Because like, how can you write these emotions? How can you,
It's so what it sounds like to me is just like an extended period of numbness.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
And you're numb to it because you can't even feel anything. You can't
yeah,
express emotions, and
yeah.
just everything is.
I went to sleep. I woke up. I have no idea what time of day it is. I have
I
no
don't
idea
know
how
what's
long I
happening. Yeah,
slept. I can't talk to
yeah,
people. I'm eating the same shit every day. I don't know
yeah.
even know what my thoughts would be. Like, man, I remember because when I was in Toronto, I'm going back in July 18th.
Nice.
There were some days where I realized I'm like, I haven't left my apartment today, and it was like 5 p.m. and I'm like, I'm gonna go nuts. And that's me
Yeah.
sitting in a fucking apartment in downtown Toronto with a TV, Wi-Fi,
Mm-hmm.
with a
Yeah.
bedroom. I'm still employed. I can call up my friend and talk to them immediately. They'd pick up.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
them would, at least. But it's like, and I'm going fucking ape shit like crazy. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, the idea that
The process of writing it was also a little bit traumatic. It brought back a lot of bad memories because I started writing it when COVID first happened, and
Mhm.
I took those regulations very seriously.
Mhm.
At first, for the
Yeah,
first 3 or 4 months, I
yeah.
was just hiding in my basement in my own mini solitary, and I
Mhm.
was just trying to remember about being in solitary. So it was not a good time trying to remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then it was like immediately followed by all those Black Lives Matter protests, and I was
Mhm.
seeing all these images online of cops lining up, and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna log out for a little bit.
Yeah, I think that makes you a bigot, but keep going.
Yeah, well, I apologize. I apologize about
Yeah. Well, are you using your privilege to
not being hands-on with that protest. It brought back a lot of bad memories, and I was like, hey, you know what? I paid my dues. You guys take care of this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I can't do this emotionally. I get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny. But yeah, man, that's wild because I don't know. The idea of trying to get people to understand what that's like, and even not even understand what it's like, but just the concept of what that would entail. Like, I can't imagine just somebody coming in to kick the shit out of me if I yelled. Like, what the fuck's wrong with this person, man? Just your job is to go kick the shit out of people who are suffering, out
Yeah.
of people who want to
And
die.
in your mind, you believe that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, you're fully you can't have less than 100% buy-in and have that
No.
position. You can't be like 70%. Like, yeah, I should be doing this and
Yeah.
execute. You know what I mean?
No, 100%. Like people who are in that prison. I mean, we were the political section of Evan is a lot worse than the criminal section. Is a lot
Mm-hmm.
worse than the criminal section, and it's because of the guards. I mean, my jailmates, the people who were there, were like journalists, doctors, bloggers, all
Mm-hmm.
great, smart people, and the guards are what makes it absolutely horrible. And it's notorious. It's notorious for that. I think it's one of the most famous political prisons in the world. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean,
Probably the top 10. Yeah.
even if it's not top 10 by whatever metric, like I think you still kind of drive the point home.
Yeah, as a 15-year old who, by the Iranian law, is illegal to imprison a minor
Mhm.
by the Iranian law. But it just, when you're there, you're there.
Yeah.
There's no law,
So
no regulation.
how long were you there for? How long were you in prison for?
3 4 months around.
Okay, damn. And how did you get out? Like, did they just realize, okay, it's fucking kid?
Oh,
Like,
you have to read to get there. No, I'm joking. Um, the entire concept of basically imprisoning people who pushed back against the government was to break their soul and make sure that they're not going to do it again, right? And also get some publicity out of it to try to discredit the movement, right? So we were just an anchor for that publicity stunt.
Mhm.
To I had to say that I got paid to write that piece that got me in trouble.
Mhm.
And I don't know from who, I don't know from what, but I got paid to do it. That's what I had to say. And I tried to push back as far as I could. At some point, you just can't.
Mhm. There's
And that's
a
how I got out. Yeah.
there was a conversation I was having with my friend about And I mean, this could go into, are human beings naturally evil? Because stuff like this, like dictatorships and oppression, and that happens all the time. Like this isn't like, oh, that was in the history books. Ever since today, our hands are cleaned. Humans are good now. And it's not, I think the world is perfectly as it should be, and as it is 150% of the time. It's not necessarily the world's a wonderful place or the world's a negative place. It just is. And however much negative you can find in the world, there's as much positive to offset it. That's just me, though. And this could go into human beings are naturally destructive of a conversation. But I guess I was having this conversation with somebody, and we're talking about when you're in political power and you're being paid off by somebody bigger than you or another entity or a foreign country, and you can make like 30 people in your life, they're set, they're good, they don't have to worry about shit. All you got to do is accept the money from somebody else and let them do whatever the fuck they want. Like, obviously that's not right. However, for a lot of people, that's very enticing. And it's like, yo, why wouldn't I just fucking bend the knee to whomever the fuck, let them do what they want and take care of this tiny group of people, right? So I don't know what kind of incentives that the guards and the police in Iran were facing or were given. But I don't know. What do you think of that concept, like of being paid off and lobbying and stuff like that?
I think it's valid to a certain point. Also, I agree with you that the history of humankind is very bloody. It's absolutely horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
And are human beings evil? I don't know. I think there's grounds for that. There's a lot of grounds for that. If we're not talking out of our ego, I think human beings are basically the worst thing that could have happened to this planet. Yeah. When I look at all the pain that we caused over the past 5,000 years. But moving on, yes, I believe that when you see what's behind the curtain, 100% you have to be paid off. But for the smaller people in that whole regime, you have to realize that they come from very strong faith.
Mm-hmm.
They've been trained ever since they were kids, right? Mm-hmm. They were trained that this is the way it should be. This guy is from God. What he says is God's orders. And if God is giving you an order and you refuse, then writing's on the wall on that one. And when you actually in your heart, you believe that to be true, then you become somebody that has no compassion, that has no critical thinking, right? That cannot understand the right from wrong. Because if God tells me to do something, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And those guards, I think in their minds, I mean, there were obviously some people who had skin in the game, who had some benefits that they were taking advantage of. But I think most of the people who stood in front of this massive protest, in their hearts, they believe that that's the right thing to do. That's the difference. That's the difference between paying somebody off and brainwashing them from a very, very young age.
Yeah.
And in Iran, the entire school system is meant for that. I studied religion ever since I was a kid. I studied Arabic before I studied my own language, Farsi, and all these things actually have they play a role. And if I was not raised by my parents, and then I would, who knows where I would have ended up, right?
Exactly. So what you're saying is the Solzhenitsyn thing definitely applies here.
Oh,
a little bit. But I think, and this is one of my issues with the schooling system, with university, with government, with church. It's all about indoctrination, or not all about, because there are some people who really love critical thinking and are just happen to be there. But for the most part, it's about indoctrination. And you think about, how these institutions started, and I mean, obviously, like, if you're trying to keep the system going, you need people to buy in. You can't just be like, oh, people don't want to go to public school. Yeah, it's going to continue to go. Yeah, people don't want to be in the church. Yeah, of course it's going to last. Like, no, you need committed members. But I guess, and this is kind of even like talking about things like going back to colonialism, and even like the news about the residential schools coming up, and how people have acted. Look at Hitler with World War II and whatever, and all the instances that we could pull up, people doing destructive things, trying to get rid of others, world domination, trying to dominate. I think domination is is inherently human, and how that manifests for you. The power. Some people it's power over their own lives. Some people it's power over the world. But I'll say this. So I'm sure you've heard of the Harvard monkey study.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so essentially, these Harvard researchers, they had a bunch of monkeys like in this tank, and in the middle of the tank was like a ladder, and there were bananas on top of the ladder. So as soon as one monkey tried to climb up the ladder, the researchers would spray the rest of the monkeys with water. So when the monkey came back down the ladder, the monkeys would beat the shit out of the one monkey who tried to go up. And after so many times of a monkey trying to go up and get the bananas and the rest being sprayed, no monkeys would go up the ladder. So they took one of the monkeys out, replaced him with a new monkey. The new monkey tried to go up the ladder, and before he could even go, they beat the shit out of the new monkey. So let's say there are 6 monkeys. They replaced monkey 1 with monkey 7. So they took monkey 2, replaced him with monkey 8. Monkey 8 tried to go up, they beat the shit. And they kept doing this until all the monkeys were replaced from the original experiment, and they would still beat up anybody who would try to go up the ladder without even knowing what the consequence was.
Without being sprayed ever.
Yeah, without being sprayed, without ever having them try to go up the ladder. And I think that's how a lot of humanity's played out in terms of when people talk about like these conspiracy theories, and I'm a huge tinfoil hat, so to me it just sounds like it makes sense. But like when people talk about stuff like that, and we look at, people talk about, the systems today are broken, I'm not necessarily sure, unless you have like a really inept leader like Brian Pallister or some shit. I'm not so sure there, like you said, there are like these evil people pulling this. Everybody's in on it. Like all these government officials, I think they're just
conditioned
to continue and conditioned to stay the course without thinking about it too much and being like, no, this doesn't make sense, right? Like let's say you're a medical professional in the Manitoba provincial cabinet, and you're like, well, I don't know, this doesn't make sense. But like, dude, people could be dying. Yo, dude, the rest of them think this way. Look, the WHO thinks like this. Do you want to be the one fucking idiot who goes out of line? They'll be like, no, hell no. And then they become a same messenger who says that, right? And every other way, the church, with priests, with bishops, with deacons, it all becomes the same thing. If you do this, you're going to go to hell. I mean, when you're leading with fear anyways, you don't want to get beaten up by the other monkeys climbing the ladder. If you step out of line, if you lead with fear, that's how they create the compliance. Sorry, go ahead. I'm kind of rambling now.
No, that's fine. You lost me when you gave an example about a medical professional.
I saw you lose it in your eyes, but I was like, I'll get him back with the church.
I'm like, yeah, you just get back to. No, I'm just joking. I have massive respect for healthcare professionals. I don't think they would risk their God knows how many years of education to say something that they don't believe in. But yeah, I do believe, I don't understand the concept. I don't believe in the concept of big brother, of somebody pulling the strings. I think people, there's a chance that people just might be dumb,
Yeah.
You statistically speak.
That's true.
And that's the reason these things are happening. And yeah, people are conditioned because they've been rewarded or they've been punished, and that's why they're doing these things. And 100%. And that's how you control people. It's just a massive cult. Everything is just a massive cult. You're just getting conditioned to do things. That's how socialization works, though, right? That's how the society works.
Yeah.
We just get punished for not following the regulations and law, and then that's how we move forward. But we just have to understand and put some lines for ourselves too.
Yeah, and social media,
critical thinking.
And social media works like that too. Obviously, you know that more.
100%. Social media, internet. That's the way internet works. The way internet works is to just feed you what you already believe in.
Yeah, and feed you what's going to keep you on the internet.
Yeah,
whether it keeps you
just
angry.
Feed that narrative. Just feed that narrative and keep going.
it's funny. I think, and I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, because, okay, so there are stories and parables throughout history of figures who have bucked the trend and swam the opposite way from the common narrative and either been rewarded or expressed wisdom, right? Like, obviously, I grew up Catholic. So Jesus Christ was one of them. I don't know too many other religions that had that, but the emperor's new clothes, that's a parable about somebody like that. The historical figure, the jester. And I kind of wonder why more people don't gravitate towards, okay, well, don't just be a contrarian for the sake of being a contrarian. Me 5 years ago. But don't just do that for the sake of being different, but rather look for the value in what are people saying and what's the value in the other side of the argument, right? And I mean, obviously, socialization is huge. You don't want to be outcast and from evolution and social conditioning from years of, like, I know a big thing with Mennonites is keeping people out of the confines, keeping people out of the colonies, and letting them starve.
They stay perfect, just like they are.
Exactly.
Never evolve.
And Mennonites are perfect. They're like, if there was a one true group of people that was probably the best, I'm kidding. I wouldn't vote Mennonites. I'd vote, I'm not going to say that. Somebody's going to catch this. I'm going to get in trouble. I'm wearing a Germany jersey and be like, he's a Nazi. No, I just want them to win the Euro and the World Cup. That's all I ask for. But anyways, not the point. The point is, I guess, obviously socialization is what keeps people away from bucking the trend. That being said, I do find it interesting that people are quite quick to, and I've done this a million times, obviously, so I'm not like I'm better than people, but we're quick to jump on the latest fad and we're quick to jump on the latest trend without
100%.
thinking of what kind of consequences there are behind it.
Yeah, but it's also a very hard thing to do. There's a reason why we glorify people like Martin Luther King and people like Gandhi, because what they did was extremely difficult to just stand up and swim the opposite way, right? Or Mandela. Yeah, that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, maybe you have a point. But at the same time, I think these like punishment and reward is what keeps the society going.
I mean, what's the alternative, right?
Yeah. I mean, you do need critical thinking, but the reason why we're so divided right now, in my opinion, is solely internet and social media, because you're just fed your own narrative the entire time you're online, and you get to a point that you believe in your heart that you have the right thing, you have the right to say those things, and everybody around you thinks the same because those are the only people that you see. And yeah, that's what's keeping people from actually stepping out and looking at the big picture and putting themselves in other people's shoes.
You know, I'm going to disagree, and here's why. I think things like power, things like money, things like status, things like the internet, they're tools. Like, you would never say hammers are bad. Well, it depends what you're doing. Are you clubbing your head in the temple? Yeah. That's a bad thing. Are you hitting a nail to build a house or a fucking homeless shelter? That's a good thing, right? I think those things are magnifying glasses on our true character. I found the most growth I ever had was when I wasn't just sharing things online. And I still do get caught up in it sometimes from time to time, but it's significantly dropped where it's like, okay, I don't need to share everything online. Oh, does that mean I don't care? No, it just means that I'm 100%. Not sharing this online for other people to see, right? I think the world's speeding up. And I'm going to use a basketball metaphor here because it's the only language I like to think of that I speak fluently. But in 2014, the Spurs won the title with Boris Diaw and Tim Duncan. Like, the next year, the Warriors won the title, and I think the Milwaukee Bucks had Greg Monroe starting at center. They gave him a huge contract. Him and Jabari Parker were the power forward and center. That did not last at all. Like, that went extinct so quickly. Oh, is Greg Monroe a shitty player? Is Jabari Parker a shitty player? No, they made the NBA. Just the way the landscape is going, dude, if you can't adjust, you're not going to play. Same thing with the internet, right? Like, if you can't adjust, the internet that's the way we're going. And so you
think people just like sharing things just to be seen?
Of course. I even told you off air I did something that I disagree with now because I wanted people to know that I was good. I wanted people to know that I was in the in crowd, that I was woke, and that I was, somebody who gets it and is better according to the
I'm just better.
I'm just being better. No, bro, just do better, bro. Like nobody says what being better is, and everybody has a different measuring stick for it. So if you don't simultaneously accomplish everybody's ideals of how you're supposed to live your life, then you're automatically a shitty person. But it's just to say that, yo, man, you can't go back in time. Greg Monroe might have been a fine big in like 2007. He might be an all-star year in, year out, but he's not in 2017. He's out of the league in 2021. If you're going to be somebody who like jumps on trends and harasses people online because you think it makes you a good person and tries to go out of your way to look for villains and people doing things wrong, like, yo, in 1994, maybe you would have just been the annoying neighbor or the person who people just kind of like,
now he actually has consequences.
Yeah, I can go without that person. I don't hate them, but now it's like, if you want to be that person in 2021, you could have severe consequences against other people. I don't see how that gives you a sense of fulfillment. I've never met one person who like really clings to that ideal. They're like, yes, I want to constantly call people out and I want to look for bad people online and I want to create villains where there aren't any, because no, there actually are all the time. And like the idea that Ibram Kendi.
You never met those people, really?
No, what I was gonna say is I didn't finish my sentence.
Winnipeg. Okay.
I've never met somebody like that who is like, yo, I'm truly calm and fulfilled and have a sense of peace. And then something that I would get a counter for, I can already hear it in my head. Some people are like, well, that's just privilege to be at peace. It's not easy for everybody. No, it's not easy for everybody, bro. Somebody, and I'm rambling, but I want to say this because I think it was kind of profound. My buddy told me this. He was like, dude, it doesn't matter what your skin color is. It doesn't matter what your background and your upbringing is. If you can solve people's problems, they will accept you. Is that fair? No, but it's the truth. If you can solve a problem, people will love you. And you're not going to be loved by everybody, but your value goes up, and people are inherently selfish. That's not a good or bad thing. It just is. If you can help somebody out, if you can solve a problem for them, and if you can make their life easier,
you're a good person.
They will accept you. And sometimes people don't see that, which is why you get racist, which is why you get bigots, which is why you get sexist people. They don't see the value that people can bring, and they don't see people as human beings, of course. But I kind of lost track of where I was.
Well, there are different layers to anything, as well as racism. There's different levels to it. I mean, I don't think people are out there saying, "Oh, kill all brown people," but I mean, are they going to always accept them? No. Yeah. But another thing that I would like to point out is I feel like people should care about something. Like, everybody should have a social cause. Everybody should have something that they're passionate about. But back to the point that you made, they shouldn't just be posting stuff just for the sake of posting. Yes. They need to educate themselves on one or two subjects that they're very passionate about. And try to solve the problems in that subject, right? You see these people right now, especially on social media, especially in Winnipeg, that they're trying to solve everything. And like just 20, 30 things. And do I think there's not that many things wrong? Yes, there's absolutely a lot of problems out there that needs to be solved.
There's an infinite amount of problems.
Infinite amount of problems.
Infinite. It'll never end.
And they all have to be solved, 100%. It's not one person's job, because when you do that, then you can't be educated enough on all those subjects, and you're just going to be counterproductive to the cause, right? So just be passionate about one or two subjects, whether it's depression, racism, sexism, whatever it is that you're really passionate about. Educate yourself and trying to find ways to help people, and not just be the person who cares about everything and knows about nothing.
Yeah, because and one of the things that I found really helpful when I was younger and I was thinking about it, I was like, but shouldn't we care about those things? There's a difference between caring and recognizing injustice. Yep. Always recognize things that are wrong. Always think things through. Excuse me. But if the rubber doesn't meet the road, if you're not actually doing something, if you're not actually willing to do something of substantial value, you don't actually care. And a lot of people take that person and they're like, oh my God, I'm not a bad person. Fuck you. And I'm not saying you're a bad person, bro. dude, there are so many hours in a day. There are so many thoughts you can have in a day. There's a limited amount of bandwidth that you have that you can go through life functioning at a high rate.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not worth being the jack of all trades, master of none, because then no difference actually gets made. None whatsoever, man.
Happens.
Like, and that's not the uplifting, moral, social justice, woke answer that people want, but it's the truth.
If you actually cared, you would support people, but you would let them do the talking.
Yes. And also I think it's one of those things that I try so hard not to get swept up in like the popularity of what's going on, because the TRC mentions recovering the bodies of the children of residential schools. That was brought up 6 years ago and it was declined by the government. A lot of people are just finding out about it now. And yes, it's great to recognize that that's unjust. Yes, it's great to recognize that that's not fair and residential schools are horrible. However, shouting from the hilltops and casting down judgment on others who don't appear as woke as you, again, if you share it, cool, good for you. I'm not slandering sharing. I'm not slandering
raising awareness.
Yeah, raising awareness and being sad about it. I'm criticizing you trying to go all over the place and touch on every single base because you think it makes you woke and being better than others. Educate yourself on one topic and then make a difference there, right? Like I remember I found out a couple years ago that there's still no clean drinking water on reserves. And so like I try to bring that up as much as possible because it's like, I don't know what the fuck I can do right now, but I'm not I'm not going to forget about it. Like that's something that always sticks with me. I'm not just gonna be like, it's popular now. No, that's always something that sticks with me. The Manitoba government can come up with $30 million to incentivize people to hire those who are vaccinated without taking into account any policy about people who cannot get vaccinated or realizing that they fucking murdered businesses throughout the year, or the fact that some people have to fucking sell their homes because they couldn't afford rent. Businesses went under. People were depressed. Opioid addiction went up. In a city that already has an opioid fucking crisis. Depression went up. Suicide went up. But now you're going to act like you're saving the day with $30 million and reserves still don't have clean drinking water. Oh, but that's their land. That's their issue. We stay out of it. Bro, I don't know how you can be a political leader and come up with policies like that. The Ontario government had a $400 million deficit at the end of 2020. $400 million went unspent. I'm not sure if it's deficit or surplus. I can't remember the fucking proper term, but $400 million went unspent.
Yeah.
By the Ontario government. Bro, that's right there. Those two examples, that's $430 million. And reserves still don't have clean drinking water. Like
more than enough to
and that's just two examples in the last calendar year that I just pulled out of my ass. It's like, man, I don't right?
No, 100%. And you're obviously a lot more educated on this topic than I am. I'm still trying to learn more about it and get involved. But yeah, those things are just. It needs to be criminal. It needs to be. I don't understand how these people can still have the power. Where there's like an election every 4 years, so that's another thing that you have to look at. Is how is this just a cycle that everybody up there is evil? You know,
maybe it's the monkey experiment, right?
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is. Maybe you do have a point. Herbs are, I don't even need. So I mean, I've been working with foster kids for the past 5-6 years, and it's just horrible the way the entire system is designed.
Yeah. I think one of the things that, and I mean. One of my friends is like really, really far left, and I can hear them in my ear right now being like, "Oh, so you're advocating for a revolution? Interesting." Kind of, not really. I don't know how I feel about that, but anyways, the point.
Reformation.
Yeah, reformation, actual change.
Back to the point of my book.
Yeah, exactly. I think part of the issue is the government's very inefficient. Like you have a certain group of people trying, again, like you said, trying to cover all bases. Maybe people who really care about the issues need to find somebody who's rich. Maybe need to find somebody who has enough money to convince the government. Maybe they need to, I don't know, get in groups on their
Obviously,
own.
that's the best way. That's the best way to create something good is to become successful. That's the best way to
Yeah.
implement actual change. You can't do anything from the bottom. And that's something that I've been implementing in my life, especially in the past 2 years, is that if I actually want to help people, I need to be a person in a position to help people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if everybody thought this way, then we would get rid of a lot of problems in the span of 20, 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe
it all comes from individual.
Yeah. And maybe I'm a flaming hypocrite because I'm like, yeah, I care about them not having clean drinking water. It's like, what the fuck am I really doing? Like, other than talking about it and making sure that it doesn't fly under the radar, like it's bare minimum. At least it's something. But again,
it's something. It's something. Yeah. But you got to start somewhere, right?
Become successful, right? Like Jay-Z said, I don't get why people criticize. I can't remember the specific quote, but he said something about like, I'm never going to help the hood if I'm poor. Like, I'm never going to help where I came from.
You think Jay-Z faces racism? No, he doesn't. He doesn't face racism anymore. Like, he's up there, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And like, that's what he's going to do. Like, he's not going to, if he wasn't successful, he wouldn't be able to help anybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like people say, oh, he's an elite, he's compromised. Like, maybe, but he's also made a big difference in some areas. Maybe we're inherently flawed and just all hypocrites, just shouting each other down for not being good enough. And at the end of the day, we can't make enough of an effort to please everybody, or we can't do enough to please everybody. Like even LeBron James, when he started.
I also don't know how I would react if I had $1 billion in my bank account. Like, I can't tell you that I'm gonna do some good. I've never been in that position. I can't even imagine being in that position. So like, who am I to judge those people, right?
Exactly. I'd probably do some dumb shit for sure. I'd for sure do some stupid shit, which is
dumb shit right now, and I don't even have that.
Yeah, I spent way too much money on this jersey. I love it though. Yeah, it makes me look cut. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, thank you. Oh man, it makes me look cute.
It'd be nicer if it was a Portugal jersey, but I mean, I'll leave that slide.
Hey, I've been having that conversation for 22 years now, so
I believe it.
You know, the only person who sides with me is my mom. She's like, just leave him alone. You guys push him to this. This is.
Your mom's like, if you're happy.
Yeah, literally. The typical mom answer, and she's the Portuguese person. So if anybody should be mad at me, it's her. Yeah, I'll say this. In 2014, because I've been cheering for Germany since 2006. Like, my brothers were like, Brazil and Portugal are our teams. You need to find your own. So I was like, okay, I'm going to pick this one. So I picked it. And then 2014, Germany beat Portugal in the group stage 4-0. And then they beat Brazil 7-1 in the semifinal. My family didn't talk to me for like a week.
Yeah, I remember that game.
They avoided me in the house for a while.
That was bad. I enjoyed the game, but I felt so bad for Brazil because you guys were like, Brazil was they had a very good team, and they were one of the people that everybody thought they were going to win it.
And they were the host.
Yeah, it was in their own. That was brutal.
Yeah, Neymar wasn't playing, but like, dude, you can't lose 7-1 because Neymar's not playing.
Because of one player, and that's a striker. Like, your defense is
like, it's embarrassing enough to lose like 3-0. They were down 5-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
Like, I remember when it was New Year's 2017. I think Bastian Schweinsteiger tweeted like "Happy New Year," and it was like 2-0, and then the Brazil flag and the Germany flag.
Oh.
And then
did he actually do that?
He did, yeah.
Oh.
And then Ronaldo tweeted, like Brazilian Ronaldo, like the original.
Navarro, whatever.
I think so. I can't remember his real name, but he tweeted like "Happy New Year," and then it was like the Brazil flag and the Germany flag and the 1-7. It's like, dude, the 2002 World Cup final. I get it; it's the World Cup final, but like that's not the same. That's not the same thing, bro.
No,
it's not the same thing at all.
Losing 7-1 is always embarrassing, especially in the World Cup. It's even worse.
At home.
That was bad.
To the eventual World Cup champions. Like, dude, that's like, I get it. You gotta say something. Like, you can't just take that lying down. And he's the person who scored both goals in the final for Brazil to win their 5th, right? So like, he's got skin in the game. It's like, yo, he never played against Bastian Schweinsteiger, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, those two things are not the same, bro. They're not the same. Sorry.
What do you think about that book so far?
I like the book. I really like the book. I like it a lot. And I think one of the things that I wanted to wrap up with you in all this was kind of your journey transitioning out of that. You moved to Canada, and obviously there's so much like pent up emotion, and there's so much obviously anxiety and fear and insecurity. And I know you said you've been like working on it a lot, but like what's that journey kind of been like? Because I know everybody has their demons and everybody kind of has things to work on, and I've been on my journey of self-development and personal growth for a while, but I really want to hear about yours and what that's kind of looked like for you. And if there was like a moment where you're like, okay, no, I need to work this out.
Well, all this stuff were happening about 10 years ago. So when I was 15, right? And I came to Canada when I was around 18. After all that stuff, I was instructed very clearly that I'm not allowed to talk about anything that happened, right? And if I ever speak about any of this, I will go back. And well, I mean, you can imagine that was the last thing that I wanted to do. So I just lived my life normally, just went to school like nothing has happened, never talked about it to anybody. My parents didn't even know the magnitude of the problem. And for years till I came here. And then when I came here, obviously I came here with like basically close to no background in English. Couldn't speak a word. And I was just focused on fitting in. Basically was just focused on fitting in, finding friends, just making this journey just a little bit easier, because that culture shock was insane. It was absolutely eye-opening when I came here, and just ended up, I don't know, being in a country that my friends are dying or getting 12-year sentence because they wrote an article, and coming here to somebody my age talking about how excited they are about Batman versus Superman and Pokemon Go, and like that difference in culture was just to me is like, what the fuck is going on? And so again, for a very long time I didn't say anything because I was like, I need to fit in. And I don't know how people are going to react. I'm like, hey, this is the shit that I've been dealing with, you know? So I think when I started writing that book was literally the first time that I ever openly talked about it or even thought about that entire situation and what it meant to me in my future. And yeah, I mean, I've been seeing a therapist for many years, but it got to a point that my therapist was even like, okay, you've been coming here for a couple of years, but like you've never said anything. It's like, I understand something is wrong, but I can't.
I need to know.
You never told me anything. So that was the entire motivation behind writing that book. And also because I had a lot of time with the COVID and losing my job and staying at home. So I needed to do something. And yeah, then after that book was the time that I really got to reflect on everything and understand that the trauma that I was experiencing has roots in that, and kind of address it with different people and with friends and obviously with professionals. And I think that was a turning point. That was a turning point for me. And after that, I went into hiding, basically. I mean, didn't really go into hiding, but I just kind of stepped back and tried to just work on myself for a little bit. I'm still working on myself. It's going to be a never-ending battle, but yeah, the turning point was that therapeutic process of writing it. And actually seeing it, trying to remember it, because I spent 10 years trying to forget it, right? But those emotions are there, that trauma is there, and you can never ignore those as much as you want to live your normal life.
There was a quote I read in my book recently that I'm reading. It's called "The Universe Has Your Back," and they said when the universe confronts you with an assignment that you need to complete, you must accept it. You can't decline it, because if you don't accept it, you just keep pushing it further. You just keep putting it off, but it's
Mm-hmm.
still there. So that situation will keep presenting itself over
Mm-hmm.
and over and over and over and over again until you decide to confront it.
Yeah, I mean, if you run into the same problem over and over again, you're the problem. So you got to fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the thing, and that's what I'm trying to do. I mean, obviously, made some very questionable decisions in my past, and not justifying any of it. I think we talked about this off air.
Yeah.
But yeah, not justifying any of it, but the process is a very dreadful and very painful process that I'm going through.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that like you take accountability for, right? Like,
yeah,
whether or not the context behind it, like you still did those things, and it's not to justify it, but like I said to you off air, compassion isn't about rising above suffering. It's not about judging suffering. It's about delving deep into the suffering without judgment and sitting there with it. So again, it's not about, you know.
You have a whiteboard behind the camera with all these codes, or you just that smart?
No, I got nothing. I got an air freshener on the wall over here.
Just checking.
I have one in Toronto. I have a whiteboard in Toronto.
Okay.
But I don't know. That was one of those books that I don't know. Here, I'll tell you this. In 2020, I read 38 books. I'm on my 26th in 2021. I'm trying to get it done before July 1st because that's halfway through the year. But I don't know.
Count my book towards that.
Pardon?
Count my book towards that list too.
I will. Yeah, that'll be 27. I'll try to get that done before July 1st as well. I didn't even think of that. Thanks for that. Thank you. We're out here breaking records. But it's one of those things that, like, when I read books, I write down things that mean a lot to me. I stopped doing that recently just because COVID's been a lot for me. So just reading has been a chore. But it's stuck with me. That thing really stuck with me. The book's called Mindful Compassion. It was about it was about from the kind of the Buddhist version of the Buddhist interpretation of compassion, and mixed with a psychologist or a therapist. I can't remember what he was, but it was like one of those two things, and they were kind of talking about it together. And yeah, it's right. Like compassion, they talk about compassion is not letting somebody off the hook. Compassion is not justifying things that they did. Compassion is not judging whether they're good or bad. Compassion is sitting with them, because sometimes that's all we can do. You need to recognize humanity in other people. You need to recognize humanity in situations. Otherwise, our interpretations of situations can get warped, right? Like Michael Malice talks about this in his book, The New Right. Anytime you make generalizations of a group, you rob the individual members of their humanity. Yeah. And that includes the alt-right. And I get it. I know what the alt-right is. And I know that there are some terrible beliefs over there. However, they still are people. And it's not to justify the things they do.
No,
it's not to, right? You need to sit with that. You need to understand it. And you need to be able to.
And you need to give grounds for improvement. You need to let them grow.
Otherwise, how are we supposed to, like, when people criticize prison and they say it's supposed to be for rehabilitation, but how are they rehabbing anybody? It's the same with social media. When we're condemning people, and I've been guilty of this, how are we letting people get better? Do the work. What work, man? Like, you can bring a horse to water, you can't make it drink. So therefore, it's not worth trying to coerce people into doing the work, even if they are being shitty.
Yeah.
It's worth sitting in that, though, and realizing what it is. Because at the end of the day, right, like, the context for you is, like, you literally could have died, and you were literally shouted down and kicked the shit out of, and you were in fucking prison, and you had to move to a new country, you didn't know the language, and you were fed indoctrination with this mix of political activism that you're trying to figure it out. And you're a guy who could easily kick anybody's ass that I can think of anyway, mine for sure. And
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
I've never fought anybody there. That's my tell. That's me showing all my cards. I just hope that people are scared of me. So, but I guess my point, I'm not trying to make you sound like some dude who's like kicks the shit out of people, but like, you do jujitsu, you obviously know your way around combat. It's easy to judge you for that. And it's easy to look at those things that happened in your past and be like, oh, well, let's let him off the hook. Or it's easy to look at some of the things that you may have done and be like, wow, what a piece of shit. But it's it all
The
comes together.
accountability is very important. The responsibility is very important. And I'm privileged to have people around me who bring these things to my attention. And I don't always like it, but I always try to reflect on it, and I always try to be better. And there was a time in my not too long ago that I was going down a very, very dark path, and it took conversations. It took people not judging me to bring me out of that.
Yeah.
And it took people who cared about me to come and sit with me and make sure that I'm okay. And the person that I am right now is because of all these conversations that I've had, of all these people not judging me so quickly. And even if they don't, they obviously think what I did was wrong, but they recognize that I'm trying to be better.
Yeah, and that's great. And I applaud you for having the courage to confront that.
No, I applaud you for having me on your show, even though you might be getting canceled tomorrow.
Dude, you know, yeah. And I said, look, like I didn't want to have you on earlier on my past podcast because of the allegations and things that came up. But it's one of those things that, one, conversations aren't co-assignments. Like I would be an idiot if somebody's like, yo, R. Kelly wants to talk to you on your podcast about the things that happened to him when he was younger. I'm not sure if you know, like R. Kelly was molested and like raped as a kid. So like, dude, that's humanity there. Again, it's not right. He was a victim of sexual assault, and he went and he did things, I'm not going to use the word equally, but he did horrible things to other people because of that. And that doesn't justify it. That doesn't mean his victims shouldn't be hurt. That doesn't mean they can't hate him. Of course not. It is what it is to say is there's a lot of value that we miss in understanding people. There's a lot of value that we miss in dismissing situations too quickly that are opportunities for us to learn and for us to get better. Like, and I'll bring this up with the residential schools, things coming up and Canada's dark past and all that. Yes, Canada was built on colonialism, which is, I believe it's attempted genocide of Indigenous folks. And if it's not attempted genocide, it's assimilation. There's no... It
100% is genocide, 100%.
I got some kickback from somebody the other day, so I'm like, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, which is why I frame it like that.
That's the hill I would die on.
Sure. Let's go with that then. It's genocide. At the very least, it's extremely violent assimilation. It is 100% wrong to do that. There is no argument to be like, well, it's good. That being said, people today benefit from that. And Canada is one of the most progressive countries in the world, for better or for worse. There are a lot of opportunities. You moved to Canada. My family moved to Canada. Both parts of my family moved to Canada from different parts of the world. My dad came from a third world country. He didn't exactly have a choice to move to Canada. I'm not going to go too far into that, but I think people can kind of connect the dots if they think hardly enough about it. Again, I'm not responsible for colonialism. I'm not responsible for residential schools. And that doesn't mean that I shouldn't be grateful for the opportunities that I've had in Canada. That doesn't mean that people shouldn't be grateful for
and try to make it better. There's always room for improvement, right?
And that's the second part of it. But that doesn't mean I get to turn a blind eye to the bad things that happen. That doesn't mean I have every right to discredit those who've been hurt. That doesn't mean that I have every right to look down on them. That doesn't mean I have every right to stereotype them and categorize them in negative ways. That's complete bullshit. I can't just take the good and be like, it's amazing. Fuck what you think.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's fair to be like, I can't enjoy these good things. I can't be grateful. It's two sides.
It's also very relative. I mean, another thing that when I posted about my book, I wrote down that it's really nice to be in a country that I can live freely.
Yeah.
That I can have freedom to like say these things, right? Because for a very long time I didn't have that freedom, right? And that actually got a lot of not a lot, but that got a few comments that is like, oh, Canada's not a free country. And it's like, we're talking relatively, and yes, it is.
Yeah,
you didn't live in Iran. Canada is a free country.
as stupid as the COVID protocols are, I'm not gonna be the one who tells you, hey, dude who was locked up in prison and could have been murdered. Dude, you're wrong. You're wrong. I'm not gonna be that guy. You're not that guy, pal. You're not that guy.
You're not that guy.
Are you? Absolutely. But yeah, it's one of those things that like you put things into context, right? And again, social media magnifies this. I think people are quick to judge in general, but with social media and the internet, and this is one of the reasons why I do think it's good to have at least like for the next year, or the next 2 years, until we look through all residential schools, I think it is worthwhile to have Canada Day be like a day of remembrance instead of a day of celebration for the next 2 years.
I fully support that. Yeah.
And my reasoning for that is because, like, yeah, those people who were buried there and killed, it was in the past. However, when you dig that up again, you're kind of digging up that trauma again, like you were writing your book. You're living through it again. A lot of people are living through those experiences again. It hurts. And I'm somebody who believes in like energy and God and the universe and all that. So there's something beyond the physical plane that affects people when that happens. I think it's kind of not unrealistic, but I don't think it's worthwhile to, as a country, celebrate Canada Day as like, yeah, we're going to be grateful and celebrate it for the next 2 years, because again, we're going through that trauma again, and it's important to listen to those people.
It's not appropriate to celebrate that right now.
Yes.
It's too soon. So a little too fresh.
I agree. So going into, with your book, you're relearning that trauma. With social media there, I almost lost it. I got it. With social media, one of the problems is when you read old tweets, you're going through it again. Now you're assessing it from a 2021 lens, right? When 50 Cent tweeted, "I can't believe my grandma was making me take out the trash. Fuck this shit. I'm rich. I don't need this. I'm leaving." Like, that's hilarious. That's one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life. That is acceptable in 2007 or 2008 or whatever it was. When Kevin Durant tweeted, "Scarlett Johansson, I'll drink your bathwater, #random." You'll see a lot of stupid shit from 2007 to 2010 when people didn't think Twitter was going to be big. And a lot of those jokes then, pretty gross. But a lot of those jokes then aren't culturally acceptable now. So when people read those,
man,
yes, it's easy to read it now, even though you see it's 2010, and feel some certain way about it. So
yeah, and then vilify those based on things that were okay back then because you moved the line.
Exactly, or not even you move the line, but you're leaving the context out of it.
Well, as in we progressed. We progressed as a society. So it's you can't judge people based on stuff pre-progress.
You're right. So when it comes to, and there have been terrible things that I've done, right? Like there have been bad things that I've done. There's skeletons in everybody's closet. Time marches on, right? And the things that we do that are bad, we need to take accountability for, and the things that we do wrong, we need to accept. I did that. Unless there's a gun to your head and they're like, you better fucking do this, we make our decisions. And of course, there are things 100%. Happening in the background that influence, that impact us, that, we might not have acted that way if certain things didn't happen. But at the end of the day, we must take accountability for the things that we choose to do, because that's all we can do. We can choose how we act.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
I totally agree on that one. And thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yeah, man, of course. And it's one of those things that, like, I did want to, I'm not going to lie, like 20 minutes before recording, I was like, oh my God. I was a little there. I was like, he didn't know that I thought all these things. He didn't know that I didn't want him on my podcast because I never brought it up to him about the allegations, and he didn't know all these things. It's like, man, at the end of the day, like, again, if I had an opportunity to have Ted Bundy on my podcast, and that might be a
when you say allegations and then say Ted Bundy, it sounds horrible.
It sounds.
It was not.
I'm exaggerating.
It was a messy breakup. So
I'm exaggerating to prove my point, but I guess what I'm saying is, like, I was planning on having you on my podcast over a year and a half ago.
I think we talked about it.
We to write the article was over 2 years ago. Talking to you since then, and the growth that I've seen from you on social media makes me think, like, yo, this is somebody I can learn from. And that's the entire point of the show, right? I didn't even ask you the 2 questions. I need to ask you those. This is somebody I can learn from. And it's not my job to judge you. It's not my job to be like, wow, Fardad's a bad person because he did these things. Or, yeah, Fardad's amazing. Fuck you. Nothing in his past matters. Again, the theme of compassion that I've kind of said multiple times, it's about diving in and sitting there, right? Like, if we don't choose to learn, if we don't choose to try to understand where people are coming from, then we can't truly progress. And that's one of the reasons why I defended Thinkster in the way that I did. And that's one of the reasons why I had Julian's back, because he's my friend and I fucking like Julian, and he's always had my back, and I believe in what he's doing. Was the execution great? No, it could have been better in some areas. Of course, there are room for
better, 100%, but you don't know. It's never going to be perfect till the market tells you, right?
Of course,
it's never going to be perfect.
Of course, and again, I'm a freedom of speech person, fully, no questions asked, no restrictions, and that has its own fucking conversation to delve into. And I will defend everybody's right to say whatever the fuck they want online. My question would be, if you're participating in that, what good are you hoping to bring? Because again, like I told you, the reason why I didn't want to have you on my podcast 20 minutes before when I was freaking out, the reason why I had those conversations with those people about should I have Fardad on my podcast, all the bullshit on the side went away. Everything that I was trying to lie to myself in my head to justify about why I didn't want to do it went away. And the truth fucking took a shit in my mind. And it just went, look, you didn't want to be perceived as a bad person. You were thinking, what are people going to say? Am I going to get canceled for this? Is this a bad look? What are people going to think of me? That's exactly why I did those things. And once I came to terms with that, it's like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, I was afraid. Of course I was afraid. That's exactly why I did the things I did. Would I do that? If it was me today, would I have done that? No, I would have thought it through a little bit more. But I did that. I'm not going to run from it.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't so content about being here either, but I mean, it turned out okay. I'm not really worried.
Hey, man.
We'll see. We'll see what happens later. I mean, people
come and go. The internet lives forever, bro.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I'm gonna have to listen to myself sounding like a total idiot for 2 hours forever.
Hey, you already. I was gonna say you have an audiobook for that. I'm not sure if you have an audiobook, and
I'm working on it.
Okay, and I'm not sure if I'd classify your book as idiotic. I really like it.
When my voice is behind it, it's borderline idiotic.
Maybe. Again, it's one of those things that if we can't sit with people, and I'm sure there's gonna be somebody listening to this trying to get me, but it's like, yo, dude, conversations are not co-assignments. I've come to talk to you over the last little bit. From what I've seen, again, you're somebody I can learn from. And that's why I'm going to ask you, what's something you've learned recently? Because I need to ask these two questions. It's the entire point of the show. I always.
What's something I've learned recently? With all this COVID stuff, I really learned that not everything is black and white. My life, well, except for the beginning of it, my life didn't really change significantly. I was privileged enough to still be working. I was privileged enough to do a lot of things that I needed to do. Get my schooling in order. That was a very huge step for me, and move out of Winnipeg, step away from this toxicity that was around me, that was dictating my life. I'm in Winnipeg right now, but I'm moving. I'm going back home in July 16th, I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm going to BC. Yeah. Probably coming back for a little bit, and then going there for September. But yeah, another thing, I every time I make a post about like the lockdown and people need to everybody needs to be mindful of the COVID and everything like that, I just sit on it for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then I delete it immediately because my life didn't really change. There's a lot of good that came out of this situation for me. So I don't think I have the right to judge people who are against the lockdown because they lost the business, because they can't afford food, because they can't afford rent, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something that I learned recently is just because you're living life a way, you don't have any right to tell other people what to think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is, something that I need to be a bit more humble about as well. Cause I'm honestly, my situation, I'm in the best possible situation. I work remotely. I get paid enough to be fine. I don't have to worry about anything. And so maybe my opinions can come off as callous, and I really don't mean them for it to be like that. I've just come to a point where, I feel the way I feel, and I'm not trying to body people. I'm just trying to be firm about where I stand. Right. So I feel you on that, where it's like, sometimes
as long as people understand that you're not coming from
where I say something fucking like I sounded like a prick for that. Like, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe I could have changed that. And there's so many different opinions on the lockdown. Sorry, I made that about myself. I apologize. I should have.
No, that's 100%. You have every right to. And you're right. As long as people don't try to spin it off as you're an evil person who don't care about the elderly and the immune compromised, then you have a point.
Yeah.
But the problem right now is that everything gets spun off, right?
Yeah. And people, and this is one of the things, right? Like, this is exactly what the lizard people want, right? This is what Bill Gates wants.
Did you say lizard people?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. everybody's at home right now. Everybody's stressed out. I mean, in Canada anyway. America's fine. But Canadian. This is what Justin Castro wants, bro. This is his grand plan all along. But we're all sitting at home. We're all stressed out. A lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people are depressed.
So many comments. I'm gonna let slide.
Just let it go. So many people have lost so much. So a lot of people have no more fight left in them. And I don't blame them. They deserve compassion 150%.
Yeah.
It's on the people with some fight to speak up if they believe in what the government's doing is wrong. It's on them to try to rally the troops and be like, yo, guys, we need to try to do something to stay afloat. We need to, right? Like if there are countless studies showing that small businesses don't impact COVID the way they think they do, you need to find other small businesses to stand behind you and stay open.
With my experience is that we did absolutely nothing wrong at the bar before this recent lockdown. We followed every protocol, we followed every single regulation, sanitized everything 10 times over, and we still had to shut down. So it's like, how's that fair? We did absolutely nothing wrong. We did everything that you asked us to do, and I still don't have a job. So riddle me that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things that I think I really learned is that just don't judge people. I have no right to judge people who haven't been working for the past 16 months. When I've had a solid income and everything, everything's fine for me, right? And I'm an introvert. Like I don't even like going out. So it's like, yeah, I gave up a beer with a friend once a month, like fucking sacrifices, right?
Yeah, me too. I get you. And also like one of the reasons, because I went back to Toronto, I came to visit Winnipeg for a bit, then went back to Toronto. When I came back, like the day before I came back, they shut everything down. The energy in the city, man, was awful. It was like literally as soon as I touched down, I just felt this cloud descend on me. I was like, so it's a proved theory that if you go to any psychologist or psychiatrist, anybody who's with his worth their money would tell you that the first step to basically combat depression is to get a job. Have some structure in your life, right? Have a reason to wake up in the morning, and you take that away from people for 16 months. I mean, the writing's on the wall. You know what's going to happen. I don't need a crystal ball to tell me what's going to happen. Horrible. And it has. Yeah, not fair. Horrible, man. Horrible. Yeah. And then one thing I'll ask you is, what's something that you think is underrated that people should know?
I think people should have a little bit of a global awareness as well as living in their own community. I think everybody should start educating themselves. The most underrated thing right now is education. Is educate right now. That's the most underrated. About like 20 years ago, there was a trend coming, 20, 30 years ago, there was a trend coming in North America that you don't need school to become successful. And it became very popular very fast. And well, I mean, obviously you don't need school to become successful, but a lot of people heard that in a way that you don't need education to become successful.
Yes. Not true.
And that's not true. That's not the same thing. Not the same thing at all.
Not at all.
And that's what so many people are living their lives without education. And that's why we have this nerfed up society that is, that's, I think a lot of the problems that we have is based on misinterpreting that message. So education is the most underrated thing.
And you're right. Education is the exact reason I dropped out of university, because I felt like I was learning way more on my own. And like the amount that I've read, the amount that I've learned, the amount of situations I've put myself in, I was like, yeah, this is way better for me learning than university. So I hate when I tell people that I dropped out and they're like, yeah, and they think like I'm just being a degenerate because I don't want to.
Oh, you must be dumb.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what we're talking about. If it's believing in 2014 NBA draft prospects, then yeah, I bought in. I drank the hometown Kool-Aid a little too much. Bruno was not that good, but it's okay. He's a Brazilian. I'll always support him. But my point is, it's always worth educating yourself, and it's always worth pushing and finding more. You know, it's funny about the globalization that I'm speaking about soccer, and I'm not sure if you heard about this, but Manuel Neuer was the German goalkeeper. He was investigated by UEFA because he was wearing a rainbow armband. The captain's armband. For people who don't know, the captain's armband in soccer. Every team has a captain. He wears an armband over his sleeve. Manuel Neuer is the captain for Germany, and his sleeve is a rainbow. Like, it has a rainbow on it because the German team is very supportive of Pride. And the UEFA investigated Manuel Neuer in Germany because they have a rule: no political statements on jerseys, none whatsoever. There was a big argument as well about Ukraine, because there's a part of Ukraine, I think, that's owned by, I think it's Russia or the Czech Republic or something, one of those neighboring countries.
There's a Russian part of Ukraine.
That's it. And when Ukraine, on their jerseys, there's like a watermark of the country's shape, and it has that part included. And Russian officials complain. They're like, that's ours. They can't fucking have that. And so when it comes to global education, there were two tabloid articles I saw. I'm making way too long to get my point here, but bear with me. So there were two tabloid articles I saw, people slamming UEFA because apparently UEFA threatened Denmark with a forfeit when their player collapsed in the first game of the tournament. That's not what happened. UEFA said, you can continue playing, we can play the rest of the game Sunday, or you can forfeit, which is completely reasonable. And then they said is this the same UEFA who did this to Manuel Neuer, wearing the rainbow armband, and they're investigating him? Here's why they need to do that.
To be fair, Germans wore worst armbands.
The 1938 World Cup.
Not too long ago.
Yeah, the 1938 World Cup German roster all lined up with a certain salute that you're not allowed to do in the country anymore. A year before,
I would take a rainbow flag over that any day.
A year before they dominated Poland, not on the field. But anyways, so they investigated Neuer, and I don't think it's a political statement. I think he should be allowed to keep it. They let him keep it. But here's why I think they were right in investigating it anyways. Hungary just made a law where queer media is illegal under 18. They just made a law that you cannot promote any type of LGBTQ, so like homosexuality, bisexuality, or gender change in schools to kids under 18 or in the media, which I think is an incredibly stupid law. However, like, I get it. We're very progressive in the West, which is why sometimes when people like really go hard shitting on the West, I'm like, yeah, there are bad things. But like, let's contextualize in the fucking terms of, you know, the entire globe. We're pretty progressive in the West. There are countries in Europe, in Asia, in Africa that watch these tournaments, that love soccer, who do not agree with that, who hate gay people. That's worthy to investigate at the very least, because Hungary just made that law. I wouldn't have done it personally, but I don't think UEFA is being homophobic. They let him have it. I don't know. What do you think?
I have a very clear stance on this. I think it's a social cause and not a political. I don't think it should be politicized at all. I think everybody deserves the right to love and to live. And I believe that UEFA as an organization had to take a stand supporting that because of that law in Hungary. I think they do have, and I understand your point.
Yeah, go for it.
To view, but I mean, if we're not holding other people up, if we're not trying to make this living situation for homosexuals, for example, for gay people in Iran, for example, I give an example in my own country, it's illegal there, right?
Yeah.
If as a international organization, we don't make that a mission to help everybody, then there's no point, because soccer is soccer at the end of the day, right? Yeah. And I think that was wrong. I think that was wrong. I think they should have let it. And also because the Germany changed the colors of I think the Munich
the Allianz Arena
stadium to the rainbow, and the Allianz Arena, and they even protested that, and they had to take it down.
There were other stadiums who
I think that's just
And
that's wrong.
That's wrong. That's wrong. The investigation, I don't really care as much because it's like there are different standards across the world.
Yeah.
They let him keep it, which was the right thing to do. However, I do see your point. I actually agree with you now that you say it. It's better for them to make that stand without the investigations. Like, look, this is not
if we're all left to fight alone, it's going to be a very lonely world.
Mm-hmm.
We need to hold each other up.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I agree with you. I don't think they should have investigated him. They should have just let him have it.
I think so.
Because at the end of the day, like,
yeah,
what is that really like? It's a fucking armband, man. you're gonna make him wear a different one.
It's not political.
Yeah, yeah, and
but telling people that, hey, everybody deserves the right to love somebody is not a political stand.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I agree with that. Completely. But anyways, okay, let's wrap this up because it's been going on this is probably my longest episode.
Right, for sure.
I enjoyed it though. I really enjoyed it. Okay, then
me too. And I'm gonna go catch the second half of the Portugal game.
Are they winning?
I don't know. I was talking to you.
Oh, I thought you just had it because you looked to the side. I thought you were like you had it in the corner or something. Okay, you probably just looking at the time. Okay, word. Then is there anything you'd like to leave the people with before we go?
No, that's about it. Just give the book a read, and you can find it. It's for free. You can just download it on my Instagram, I guess, and if not, the website Fedar Books, FEDARBOOKS.com. You can go there. It's free of charge. You can read it. It's not a heavy read. It's 170 pages or something like that. And yeah, just let me know. Maybe reach out in any way that you can, and let me know what you think of it. And yeah.
Word. Thanks, man. Then we'll debrief before we hang up here. But this is us signing off on Hack Final. Have a wonderful week, people. Peace out.